All right, so I'm going to try to take the rain out of the shot, or take the rain off the ground. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do now, and see if I can do it in a reasonable amount of time. If you're seeing this video, I suppose I did all right. I'm going to try to take the rain off the ground. So I've got my camera track. It's pretty good. The only downside is I don't have a lot of, or really any, locators on the actual ground plane. So I'm going to see if I can get even one or two just to sort of set that. So go back into my 3D tracker, analyzer, add another 2D tracker, set this to solo. Where can I get one? This will give it a trip, but I think this guy right over here. So. I just added like 5 trackers, great. Is there a delete tracker button? Good. Whatever. I think I might be able to get this little nubbin right here. Good enough. I can get this little nubbin. Problem with tracking this ground is, of course, there's a whole bunch of reflections messing everything up. Now the nice thing about adding 2D trackers is if you get some but not all frames, Flame can kind of figure out what it needs to from that. So you don't have to get every single frame tracked. You can kind of just get as many as the tracker will allow. Alright, so now I've got a couple of those, and then I can hit update again, and that's going to give me some points. And you can see this one is not great. It's not surprising because there's not a lot of tracking data that I've done in the foreground, so it's just kind of guessing, but I'm just going to use it as an approximation anyway. So I'm going to pick the 3 guys that I did, just create an axis, make a colored frame, bum, 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 bum. Pick magenta because it's the best color. I'm just going to hang it off of, hang it off the guy I think is a problem. The colored frame for some reason had a weird value, and then I'm just going to rotate it down to like -90. And now this is kind of arbitrary because I didn't actually set a ground plane. So there's nothing's telling Flame that the road is the ground. It just, I think it generally guesses that your camera is level. But to check that, one thing I can do, it's kind of fun sometimes, make another color, say blue. And I'm just gonna take the 2 other axes that I made, put the blue card through them, and make it really tiny. Scale it like 1. So now I got these little blue cards. One over here, one over here. And if I rotate, I got my Z buffer on. If I rotate, I can see when those cards are being bisected, which basically means this plane then travels through this card. So there, it's traveling through both cards, bisecting all 3 cards. So I can kind of safely assume that that's my ground plane. It's an approximation, but it should be fine. So then if I want to to lose that. And now if I just move this on Y and X, and my goal here is to try to scale this so it covers the whole ground. Now this is a bad idea for a couple of reasons that I'll explain in a bit, but for now it's just kind of a hacky way to do things. I don't want to spend all night sort of patching up the near foreground, which is what you have to do otherwise. So this thing's punching through my card, get rid of that, and then I like to just set this to a really high number, like 1 million. And then we won't get any far Z clipping, which is good. Maybe we will. Oh, it's just that it like approaches infinity back there, so I'm guessing if I just rotate this just a little bit, it's not correct, but whatever. We're just doing our best here. So now I want to scale this so it's about as small as I can get it while still covering the road. Alright, so now I make a diffuse map of the source plate. I set the texture to be projection, and I set the projection to be the camera track, which will make my pink card just disappear because it's got the camera over here projecting on it. Now, the cool thing is if I just pick that card again and I make another camera, I call it flat cam, make an output, and I'm just going to output and I'm going to, so now again, that's just that. I'm going to turn off the background, so it'll only render out the card, and if I change the camera to flat cam, what you get is a stabilized road, in theory. Now, this, you can see, there's just all this nonsense up here that's not really, you know, all of your details down here. So a lot of times what I'll do in this case is I will try to center the detail I actually care about and then adjust the Y scale to do two things. You want to make sure all the lines are still roughly parallel so it feels like you're looking down a road. And you also just want to sort of scale stuff up so that when you reapply it, it's not just really tiny, because what we're going to do is we're going to paint on this. So here's our road, right? And you can see, you know, you've got your main road line here, you've got your dotted lines over here, but you can also see the reflections, which are now converging all down towards an invisible disappearing point here. And so you want to get rid of those, which there's a host of ways you could do it, some of which work. I mean, sometimes I'll like try to min everything because a reflection is generally going to be brighter than a not reflection. But I think in this case, I'm just going to kind of do a smeary paint job to kind of paint them all back to this sort of gray that the water is. So we'll just do that. We'll just do it on a frame. I don't know, maybe I'll do a sequence, but whatever. So set this to drag, turn off consolidate, and just kind of paint it all in. And you can go outside the lines here, because who cares? And this is not going to be exact. Like, I think if, you know, you can already see the track's kind of junky because it's bouncing around a bit. You can see that big hit right there. If it was a perfect track, it would look like you were just looking at the road from a very weird angle with reflections that are moving the wrong way. Or incorrectly. The wrong way is kind of misleading. So, and again, I'm kind of smearing color along the direction of the road, not along the direction of the reflections. Because when we put this thing back in, all of these vertical lines are going to then converge in the actual shot. You know, I kind of, say that's the color of the road. It's not, but whatever. Get rid of that big reflection in the middle. And so let's say this is our card. I'm just going to freeze frame it. And then duplicate the action. And where our magenta one was going in before, we'll just plug in this card. We'll go into the action and delete everything that's not that card we plugged in. So now what we have is, rather than a projection, we've got that road card. And there it is, looking kind of lousy, but I think if we, this is all again pretty hacky, but if I go in the Gmask tracer, I'm just going to draw some road lines on here. We'll just do some cheeky nonsense, like grade them down a little bit. Grade them up. Maybe a little better alias than that. So, the problem you'll see with the way I'm doing this is the extreme foreground is really low res, and then the background I haven't even been able to reach because I need to put another card there. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll make one projector card that's fairly small that just does the extreme foreground and paint that up, and then do that. Because otherwise, you know, if you imagine, you know, this sort of triangle that is made by the road here, you know, the foreground is, it's HD, right? So it's almost 2,000 pixels across, and then by the time you get to the midground, 2,000 pixels is only about 200 pixels across. So you're wasting a lot of real estate every time you move back with each card. It's annoying. I'm also gonna, I realized I was smearing Lambo color onto my road over here. That's not the right road color, so I'm going to fix that, as though that's really important. We can all be happy about the drag brush being in flame. I feel like half my day is just using that. So now I've got a road, and now, you know, if I was doing this realistically, I would probably put a lot more texture in here, and I might just make another one. You know, you might want to sort of make dark road lines like that. And then I don't know, probably deform everything. And this is all looking pretty video gamey. I think the reality is you'd want to get like a road texture or something, and then just like literally stick it on over that. But in theory, you sort of have a much less wet looking road now. And now what I might do here is just use the top crop of my crazy card here, just the softness. To modulate that. And then the other thing I'm going to do, because even though this road wouldn't reflect, you'd still feel some of the light from the scene. So because we've got that as all of this stuff, I'm just going to blur it. Do like a big sort of vertical blur, and then maybe just a little bit to soften it off. And we just mix it in a little bit. Probably before I do my silly lines. You know, and I mean, this is just a starting point, but I think if you got a better texture in here, you could see how you would get a clear road. And then the only other problem to solve is the Lamborghini, which I think we just use everybody's favorite stabilize trick. I like to turn on all those buttons because it tends to work a little better. So now I've got a Lamborghini sort of brooming down there, but I got the back stabilized. So in theory, if we, that's all in theory, right? Recursive ops. Set this to min and see what it does. So you can see what it does is it takes away a lot of that spray. So if I just freeze the last frame of that, duplicate the action, plug this in. I'm mostly interested in the back and sort of this side, so I'm just going to make a G mask that kind of goes along the reflection line and down along the wheel. Because I still want to feel some motion, but I just think we can probably get away with tracking that back in. And then you just untick the invert. Actually do the wheels. A little bit of softness. Always nice. So now, just feed that into our hero track. Let's just add the mat so we can, actually that's a camera track. Well, we can do it in a camera track too. Boom. And because this is camera related, hanging off the camera. Reset the X and Y. Just push it back in Z till it lines up. Boop. Did my wheels not come through? What's going on? that Z buffer off. Kind of looks like the car's frozen, but just getting the wheel back, we'll do that. Yeah, that's all right. And then I think under the car, part of the problem is you're just seeing all that ridiculousness. But let's see if we can isolate the undercarriage of the car. You can even like see it. Make a new card. New card. Boop. Same rules as the old card. We're just going to put it in a different place. This is called FlyCam 1. So, boom. Just making this. These don't need to be related anymore. FlyCam 1. So now we'll look at FlyCam 1. And I'm just going to move the card until it's sort of center it behind the car. There, you can even rotate it. Maybe not the best idea. I have no idea if this is going to work. I think all I'll do in this case instead is I will just go in and I'll make a G mask. It's roughly the shape of a Lamborghini. And I will just move it till it is under the car. I'll blur it. I'll animate it to its second position. Again, this is all just kind of hacky and cheap, but you know, so I think in this situation what I'd probably still do is go into my freeze frame of the Lambo here at the tail. And while I do a better job than I'm about to, I would just paint darker bits in there. So get this. Let's do a goofy paint job. And, you know, with another 10 hours work, you could probably have something pretty nice. But that's generally how I would take the rain out of something like this, were I asked to. Because even though it frankly looks like a goofy video game, I think with a bit of painting in the road, if you actually painted a nice road, even with my lousy track, I think it tracks okay. And with a better track, it'll track better. So that's, yeah, that's how I would clean that thing up.